Mr. Ryu, the floor is yours. And Mr. Ryu is being joined by Councilmember Martinez.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Today is a very special day. I'm very humbled to introduce and honor a true human rights hero, Miss Lee Young-soo. Young-soo was just 16 when she was abducted from the riverbank near her home and dragged to a coastal base for kamikaze pilots in Taiwan, where she was beaten and raped for 2 years. It was the Second World War, and the Japanese government abducted nearly 200,000 women throughout Asia, from Korea, China, Taiwan, and the Philippines. They were forced into farm labor and sexual servitude, becoming victims of the largest case of human trafficking in the 20th century. They became known as comfort women, but to put it bluntly, they were slaves. And while this atrocity has largely been ignored in our history books around the world, Young-soo has been a voice for hundreds of thousands of silent survivors. In 2007, she testified before a joint session of the United States Congress, which sparked a movement requesting the government of Japan to acknowledge and apologize for the imprisonment and sex trafficking of women in wartime Asia. On a personal note, nearly 20 years ago, I visited Korea and went to Nannun House to meet with a number of these women, resilient and wise women. I remember I was nervous. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. They were in their 60s and 70s, and they were full of life. We exchanged stories. They gave much needed grandmotherly advice. And these brave and strong women reminded me of my own grandmother. Young-soo has spent the last 25 years traveling the world, fighting for justice of survivors of rape and human trafficking, ensuring that they are never ignored and never forgotten. Unfortunately, history has a tendency to repeat itself. Or in this case, and to this day, we still have not had the success in fully eradicating this injustice. Just look at our own backyard. Los Angeles is a top point of entry to the United States for victims of slavery and trafficking. Our city's diverse and sprawling neighborhoods make it easier to hide and move victims from location to location, making it more difficult to rescue potential survivors. Which is why it is more important that today we honor Ms. Young-soo Lee for her activism, courage, and resilience. It could have been easier for her to forget, to put it behind her, but she chose not to forget. She speaks for the thousands of human trafficking survivors whose voices go unheard. Those who deserve acknowledgement for the atrocities they endured and for the strength and perseverance in the face of brutality. And no stranger to this issue, and a champion in the city of LA, and the only woman elected woman in the Los Angeles city government, I'd like to introduce Councilwoman Nury Martinez.
Good morning, colleagues. Mr. Ryu, it's a real honor to join you today to recognize Young-soo Lee. As you all know, I believe we must take on human trafficking and sexual exploitation on every single opportunity we get. Ms. Lee embodies the bravery and commitment it takes to confront those awful crimes. When she was just 16 years old, Ms. Lee was abducted and forced into sexual servitude. Her campaign to shed light on these crimes of colonial and wartime Asia is admirable. When we hear the stories of women who are victims of human trafficking, we realize that these women are our mothers, sisters, daughters, and friends. Unfortunately, in Los Angeles today, there are still young women like Ms. Lee who are abducted and taken into sexual exploitation. I commend the bravery of Ms. Lee for telling her story and putting a face to this crime and holding those responsible accountable for their actions. The City of Los Angeles can look at Ms. Lee as an example of what we can do to ensure that this practice and these awful crimes and the people who commit them are held accountable. Thank you for your powerful voice, Ms. Lee. You're making the world a better place by speaking the truth. I hope that we use Ms. Lee's story to make sure that we continue to motivate other people to fight against these awful crimes that are committed every single day to women across this country. Thank you, Mr. Ryu, for leading us today and recognizing Ms. Young Soo Lee. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ryu, can we be quiet, please? It's a very, very important issue here. Even though I was not able to join you at the podium, I want to join you from the President's chair and commend you for not bringing this to the attention of the council, but for a reminder of things that have occurred in the past, atrocities that we want to ensure never happen again. We want to recognize Ms. Lee as the hero that she is, speaking out for thousands and thousands and thousands of women whose lives were permanently altered by slave owners. And I know that I can relate to the scourge of slavery in any form or fashion at any time in the history of this world. It was wrong then, it is wrong now, it will be wrong tomorrow. I want to also acknowledge the good work that Ms. Martinez is doing here on the council to ensure that everyone within this city and county and this state recognize that the Council of Los Angeles will not go quietly into the night on this issue. That we recognize that we, as we speak, are experiencing these problems right now when we have organized thugs from gangs throughout the region that are kidnapping, abducting, and putting young girls into slavery. We cannot say enough about this issue. We must be forever vigilant, and I think that it's very important that we use our the soapbox that we stand on to speak out, to make sure that other people recognize that this is continuing to go on, that lives are being altered, and we need to do everything that we can to see that we can put an end to this, where everyone should be able to live the kind of life that God and that they want to live for themselves. So I can't say enough about you, David. I can't say enough about you, Nuri. Miss Lee, you are so welcomed in this chamber, and know that the Council of Los Angeles stands by you, and we thank you for your great actions. With that said, I'd like to defer to Mr. Krikorian.
Actually,
Mr. Krikorian. Oh, Mr. Ryu, I am so sorry. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, actually, should we have the council member speak now?
Why don't we go to Mr. Krikorian, and then we'll have your other speakers. Mr. Krikorian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members, we have before us 3 examples of real moral courage. Ms. Lee Young-soo to have told her story, to have been an advocate for the comfort women throughout a time, and particularly in a culture where it would have been easier not to do so. It would have been easier to stay silent. But you had the courage to stand up and tell your own story and help others by doing that. And Mr. Ryu, I know that for you, coming forward and presenting today on the comfort women issue, it's not without risk for you. And there are there's great controversy among the nations in this. The Japanese government continues to deny its culpability for this atrocity, and it continues to refuse to face up to its own responsibility. And I know you must have been subjected to pressures relating to that, just as have the city councils of Glendale when it installed a memorial to the comfort women, just has the Board of Supervisors of San Francisco when it voted to do the same. They were subjected to terrible political pressures from the government of Japan, a government that refuses to acknowledge its own culpability. But you insisted on speaking truth, and I think, in my view, any modern nation should face up to its own history, its own atrocities, its own mistakes and errors of the past, its own crimes of the past, and only by doing that can it become a truly modern nation. And our president mentioned our own history and some of the things that we should be ashamed of in our own history. We've faced up to those things. So should the government of Japan face up to this atrocity that imposed upon these as many as 250,000 or more women. And then Ms. Martinez, to bring this issue current. Ms. Martinez continues to be the champion of women who even today are on our streets suffering the same kind of atrocity as Ms. Lee Young-soo suffered. The same kind of trafficking, the same kind of slavery, the same kind of abuse that women right here in our own city women and girls are continuing to experience right here in our own city. So to each of you, thank you for your courage and thank you for saving lives with the work that you're doing.
Before we have Ms. Grandma Lee speak, I'd like to introduce Jessica Postigo, President of the Los Angeles Commission on the Status of Women.
Welcome.
Thank you to Councilmember David Ryu for shining a light on survivors of human trafficking. Thank you to Nury Martinez for being a pioneer in the fight against human trafficking and a beacon of hope for survivors out there. And thank you to the Los Angeles City Council and the Mayor's Office for bringing attention to this issue. Young-Soo Lee stands here today as a survivor of institutionalized sexual slavery. Her courageous voice has spread the message of one of the largest cases of human trafficking in the 20th century. And because of it, it's now being included into the story of comfort women is included in 10th grade California textbooks as a valuable starting point to students' research and discussion to the present day problem of human trafficking. We all need to know that this is an ongoing problem. It happened in Japan and Korea during World War II, but it's a problem affecting our world and specifically Los Angeles today. Los Angeles is the top trafficking hub of the United States. The Commission on the Status of Women is in the process of creating a pilot training program for City Department employees to identify victims, facilitate reporting, and take the necessary steps to eradicate human trafficking. We look forward to your continued support in advancing Angelenos' awareness that human trafficking is the fastest growing crime in America.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Postigo. Now, the woman of the hour, the person we're all here for, I'd like to introduce Grandmother Young-Soo Lee.
네, 안녕하십니까. 역사의 산 증인 이용수입니다. 너무너무 고맙습니다. 여러분, 일본은 아직까지 거짓말하고 있습니다. 저는 위안부가 아니고 이용수입니다. 일본이 밤에 끌고 가서 위안부를 만들었습니다. 여러분, 아직까지 우리 한국과 일본은 협상을 했다 합니다. 이거는 무시합니다. 아닙니다. 아베가 저희들한테 공식적으로 사죄하고 법적인 배상을 해야 세계가 성폭력의 뿌리를 뽑습니다. 여러분, 협조해 주십시오. 도와주십시오. 감사합니다. 할머니, 돌아가신 할머니들 대신 또 아시아, 대만, 중국, 필리핀, 아시아 할머니들을 대신해서 제가 여러분한테 고마움을 절을하겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Yong-Soo Lee. I am the living proof of history. I am here to express my deepest gratitude. But Japan is still lying. I am not a comfort woman. My name is Yong-Soo Lee. Japan is saying that the comfort woman is the name Japanese government gave us. I was abducted in the middle of the night by Japanese soldier, but Japan is still saying that it has been resolved by the South Korea and Japan agreement. The agreement I cannot acknowledge. We ignore it in its entirety. It's not a resolution. Prime Minister Abe must offer official apology and legal reparation for what happened to us. Only then we can start working to eliminate all sexual violence against women. So I deeply appreciate your help and all of your efforts on behalf of the victims who passed away and on behalf of the victims who are alive in Asian countries such as Taiwan, China, Philippines, and elsewhere. I am really grateful. Thank you.
Miss Lee, for all that you've done, I say, 대단히 감사합니다.
And I thank my colleagues for today because this is really full circle for me. This is one of the first issues social justice issues I ever worked on as a college student. And for me to be able to bring Grandmother Lee here in front of City Council at our great city of Los Angeles, it's a true honor. And I just want to say something to the grandmother. 할머니, 너무 감사합니다. 우리 할머니 힘이 너무 넘치셔서요. 제가 힘이 받습니다.
아닙니다. 고맙습니다.
그리고 꼭 안 까먹고요. 저 있는 힘으로 다 열심히 노력하겠습니다.
네, 고맙습니다.
너무 감사합니다.
고맙습니다.
And on behalf of the City of Los Angeles and the City Council, I'd love to present on behalf of all the members here a proclamation to commemorate this day and for Grandmother Lee visiting us today at the City Council. Thank you.
David and Nuri, well done. Well done. Let's take up item 15 quickly before we go to our next presentation. If we could please open the roll.
And a substitute motion has been distributed for council consideration on this matter, so the first vote should be on whether to substitute.
Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Now let's actually vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Englander?
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, I'm proud and honored to recognize Bruce Doring for his exceptional work and dedication to the International Cinematographers Guild, Local 600, where he has served as a National Executive Director for nearly 20 years. Bruce was born and raised in Montana, and he received a BA in Political Science from Stanford University in 1970 and a JD from UCLA Law School in 1984. Bruce began his career as a young steelworker in Chicago. There, while on the job, he recognized how the workers were not only being treated, but how they were being exposed to risk and put in harm's way. So he established a union newspaper to expose poor working conditions throughout the region. He was instrumental in Chicago in a Chicago Sun-Times expose that led to stronger safety regulations and increased incentive bonuses for employees. In fact, a model that's held up today nationally. Bruce joined the International Cinematographers Guild in 1985. He kick-started a career that has influenced the rapidly expanding creative industry. In 1996, the Guild merged with other camera locals based in New York and Chicago. Bruce then became the National Executive Director of the International Cinematographers Guild, Local 600, in 1996, and served until his retirement this past December 2015. The International Cinematographers Guild, IATSE Local 600, represents more than 7,000 members who work in film, television, and commercials as directors of photography, camera operators, visual effects supervisors, still photographers, camera assistants, film loaders, all members of camera crews and publicists. During his tenure, Bruce was instrumental in recognizing the digital imaging technician classification in the film industry. Under his leadership, he ensured that workers in the film industry could work on projects around the country and still receive health benefits and pension benefits as if they were here working on U.S. soil. What keeps the film industry strong in Los Angeles is keeping our skilled workforce here in Los Angeles. And I want to thank Bruce personally for his lifetime of service, for 20 years of dedication to keeping the film industry strong in Los Angeles. And Bruce is joined today by his wife, Lynn, his daughter, Katie, and his son-in-law, Eric. By the way, Lynn, also an overachiever. I want to recognize her as well. She is a professor at UCLA and teaches nursing. Taking all those folks that and making sure that we have nurses here to fill our hospitals, to work in skilled nursing facilities. This is really a dynamic duo. And so Bruce will have, I'm sure, a long honey-do list. Make no mistake, I have no doubt that his wife will keep him busy in his retirement. And but Bruce, I want to recognize you for what you've done to make such an enormous difference for thousands of working families, and we really, truly appreciate it. So on behalf of the entire City Council, this is signed by every member, including Paul Krikorian in blue, right there, so he stands out right there. And we want to thank you so much for your service and ask you to please say a few words. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Englander, President Pro Tem Englander, and thanks to this body. I can't think of a better way to cap my 30-year career than to stand before you today and to receive this award, particularly in light of the previous awardees today. I'm deeply, deeply honored. And I just want to say, in my opinion, we are very, very lucky as a labor community to be served by 15 council representatives who care about the lives of working people and who care about defending and protecting middle-class standards. And you know, the work of a union representative is not a lot different than the work of a council person. We get into it because we want to serve our constituents, and then we confront the realities, and we do the fights on a daily basis. And not all of our constituents appreciate the hard work that we do. Well, today, I'm here to thank you for your hard work, because when jobs were fleeing Los Angeles, and when we sat down with our fellow guilds and our unions, and the IATSE locals got together with the DGA and the Screen Actors Guild and the Teamsters and everyone, things were bleak. In February of 2014, only 28% of episodic television was done in Los Angeles. And so we looked for allies, and we found them. I remember Consul Weston in 2002.
Wow.
Well, maybe it was a little after that. And I worked with Paul Koretz and went to law school with his wife, Gail. I've worked with many of you over the years on these battles. And I want to thank you, because when we presented AB 1839 to the state legislature, your voices resonated with them. Your voices resonated with Governor Brown. And because of your support, thousands of middle-class jobs with good benefits returned to Los Angeles. And I know that. Every day when I walk in my neighborhood, I see the shooting that's going on. Not that kind. The kind of motion picture and television work that's going on.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thousands of jobs. And I also see that Los Angeles' reputation as the greatest film center in the world has been restored. The best and most highly skilled crews and the greatest talent. And think about it. I don't know if you've seen the report. In 2015, on location, comedy shows increased 100% over 2014. Between 2012 and 2015, one-hour episodic production shot up 78%. And last year was the biggest year since in 20 previous years. That brought in $2.7 billion to the California economy and supported 18,500 jobs. That's what this consul has done and helped us do. And I can tell you that Local 600's 5,000 members, all of whom are directors of photography, camera operators, assistants, still photographers, digital imaging technicians, publicists, loaders, they are grateful to you for helping us get the work back, because they can now work where they live. And I want to thank, a shout out to Councilman Fuentes and Councilman Krikorian, who sponsored AB 1069 in 2009 that laid the basis for the great breakthrough that tripled that incentive in 2014. This award would not have been possible without the support of the members of Local 600, the officers, and our talented staff. I'd like, just to my left is our president, Stephen Poster, who's here with us today.
Give Stephen a round. Stephen, good to see you.
And in the second row is my successor, National Executive Director Rebecca Ryan, and Business Representative Romney McBride. They're here to thank you as well. And I want to thank the IATSE local leaders that I've been privileged to work with all these years. Some of my fondest memories were working on these meetings week after week to put together this strategy to pass this legislation. And in the process, we became a political force to be reckoned with. And I can assure you we're not going away. We have some of our folks today from hair and makeup, costumers, and stage. They're part of Los Angeles. And
did they do your hair or makeup today?
Yeah, well, my hair's not hard. And finally, as Councilman Englander said, I want to thank my wife of almost 44 years, UCLA professor Lynn Doring. and my strong, beautiful, and smart daughter, Katie, and my incredible son-in-law, he's a little short, Eric Pusto. They are my inspiration on a daily basis. Thank you again, Consul.
Thank you. And Bruce, before you leave, Bruce, before you leave, I too want to thank you for all of your good work. And you were right where related to my attempt. It was 2002. I think the year prior to that, it was Sheila Kuehl.
Yes.
And then sometimes things just take a while. And then Mr. Fuentes and Mr. Krikorian were actually able to kind of push this over the goal line. And sometimes it takes, to do a good thing, it takes a long time. But with that said, I'd like to recognize Mr. Paul Koretz. Mr. Koretz?